Welcome to Cybertron. Today we're fixing up Starscream a little bit here. A couple of things I wanted to do was make him more coronation ready, so I hollowed out his crown so that it sits a little bit more back on his head. And then the thing I did where the video cut out is I filled in these gaps behind his shoulder posts so his arm will stop falling out of joint. So that's been filled up with polyplastic, which is this stuff that I just finished microwaving. So now I'm going to shove some of that into his crown. I'm going to cover his head with shrink wrap so it doesn't stick to his head. And then I'm just going to take a bit of this and just shove it in his crown just so it'll take the shape, the impression of his head a little bit better. Okay, and then I'm going to let that cool. Okay, so now the inside of his crown is pretty much cooled off. That sits on his head pretty nicely. That's about where I wanted it. I couldn't decide if I wanted it to be up a little or just right on his brow, but I think it looks good on his brow. So now I need to fill out the back of this crown a little bit, just so it'll give enough friction that it'll actually stay on his head. Like, it stays on pretty good, but it could be a little bit better. I think I just need to put a little bit more polyplastic back here and then just shove it on his head one more time and we should be good to go. Okay, so I'll get his crown here. We'll take out a little dot of polyplastic. It's not too hot right now. I'm just going to put it right in the gap where the back of his head would be. It's probably close enough. I'm just going to press really hard to give a good impression, and then that should be good to go. Okay, that's probably cooled enough, so we'll just take his crown off. You can see it's still transparent, so it's definitely not 100% cool. There we go, looks like everything's nice and straight. Still looks good. And it's got a little bit of added friction on the back of his head now. So that's enough for his head. So the next thing I want to fix on this guy is his eyes. There's probably not much I can do about it, but I'm still going to give it a shot. Because his eyes are just really sunken into this brow, you just really can't even see the eyes. So for doing eyes, I did another video about changing the eyes. It's very simple. You just get your hobby knife and you basically just split their skull the best you can. So this you have to be pretty careful for. And this guy's got one of the more difficult ones. He's resisting a little bit, but you can see the gap is starting to spread a little bit. So, okay, there's a nice snap there. So that's probably a little glued tab opening up. And then you just go slow and steady because you can easily injure yourself doing this. Okay, now the other side of his head is opened up a little bit, so now I'm just going to turn the knife and try to pry the two halves apart. It looks like it's opening up pretty nicely, but I should get another tool. Okay, so I'm going to use this tool that I use a lot for transforming like little pieces, and just keep wedging him apart, and there he goes. His head just came off, or his faceplate. And now we've got his eyes exposed, and his eyes are actually very bright. So this is probably going to be pretty difficult to fix. So his eyes are already a nice bright color. These are what I use to fix the eyes now. These are all ribbons. And they're kind of stickers. They're basically foil stickers. So I think this kind of lavender color is a good color for his eyes down here. So this is very simple. You just go to the end of the ribbon, you peel a bit off, and you just tear it, because this is basically like a foil paper or foil sticker, so it's very easy to tear. And then I'm just going to put that on top of where his additional eyes are, just to test out the color and see how he looks. I'm going to put his faceplate back on. And there you can see that makes almost no difference. You can see a little glint of his eyes, so that's cool. You can see that nice metallic shine. But his eyes are just so recessed, you're just not going to see them very well. And if you look inside his faceplate, you can see there's like a good amount of extra plastic underneath his eyes. And then you got this huge brow piece, which recesses his eyes a lot. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use that burr tool, and I'm going to carve the inside of his eye sockets and the inside of his cheek here. And that should just get the sticker a little bit closer up here so that his eyes will be a little bit more flush with his cheeks. And I've done this same thing on a couple of other figures that have had like eyes that are too sunken in. So I also carved out Starscream's eyes here to be bigger, and I think this is a big improvement. You can actually see his eyes, and I didn't think blue was a really good color for him, so I opted for the orange, and I think that looks pretty good. And then Optimus Prime, I think, was another offender where his eyes were just too sunken in. I think they're still a little bit too sunken, but I think this is a bit of improvement where you can see his eyes a little bit better, and they look a little bit wider. And then another figure that I've been switching out his eyes for is Tarn here. So you can see which eye has been switched and which one hasn't. This is where I put in the foil, and then no foil on this side. And this guy has light piping. It's just terrible. It just does not work at all. So you can see his foil eye just looks a lot better. And this guy's head was pretty tricky, but if you're patient, you can get it off his faceplate. And you can see this side has the foil sticker, this side just has the light piping. So that's why he looks a little bit dead. And actually, while I got this guy open, I might as well fix his other eye. This is a pretty painless procedure. I'm just going to put the sticker over his eyes. And I don't care too much if a little bit of the paper sticks out. It's not really going to be a big deal to me. But usually when you put these back on, everything pretty much ends up inside his skull. Okay, I definitely shaped that badly. I could do that better. I need to keep this opening in the top open. Okay, I cut him kind of like upside down sunglasses, so that little peg hole right there is going to stay clear. All right, and there he goes. Both of his eyes nicely lit now. Very sinister looking. Much better than his dead eyes. So big improvement on this guy. Love how that looks. Okay, so I cleaned out his brow and cheek a little bit. So I'm just going to try this color out and see if there's any improvement now that I've used that burr tool and I cleaned out his brow and the inside of his cheeks. So not really. You can still see the glint a little bit, which is nice. But the problem is the eyes are still too far back. They're back in their original position still. So what we need to do is we need to push up his eyes a little bit so they fill out the new areas I carved in. And the way I like to do that is I just get some of this blue tack. I just make a lump of this. And I'm just going to put this over his eyes. And that's going to force the sticker to get shoved into his new eye gaps. All right, so I got a new sticker here. I'm just going to put that over the blue tack, and the blue tack holds it pretty well. And then I'm just going to shove this in. Usually what happens is the sticker tears because the blue tack is shoving through it. And then we get, I think, a success. That's better, right? You can see his eyes. It's not just a glint now. So even with the shadow of his brow, you can get a pretty clear view of his eyes. So I think that's an improvement. So there's no like trick photography. That was just 1-to-1. So I'm satisfied enough with that. I'm not even going to glue his head back because I might always want to switch out his eyes with another color, but the purple looks pretty cool. His crown fits on his head. It's nicely frictioned on there, so that job is done. His arms are fixed, so I think it's a pretty successful little surgery today. And then I'm getting kind of obsessed with switching out eyes, so I did it with these Super Cops figures. These guys were kind of a pain to disassemble, but once you get them apart, you can start filling in their eyes with foil, which I think is a big improvement. So I gave this guy the green foil, which makes his eyes pop a little bit more. So that's pretty cool. And then this like shockwave, I gave him the gold, obviously. So yeah, that's how we do a little eye mod. And yeah, I hope that's helpful, and I hope people take it up and start doing it to your own figures. All right, and that's a good look at our new Emperor Starscream. And I think it's great that his eyes now match his cape. Yeah, I'm really happy with this. All right, I'll see you in the next one.